So, good evening, dear students. Welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, UPSC Mains 2024, Gender Studies Paper 4 Analysis. So, this is the paper which deals with ethics, integrity, and aptitude. And this paper also consists of some, case studies as well. And this paper is very, very important because you can score good marks in this paper if you have the strong command, strong hold, conceptual clarity over different values which are part of ethics syllabus. So for this particular syllabus, I would like to suggest to all of you that just go through the syllabus. So every topic is very important. So you have a number of topics within the syllabus. So ethics, integrity, probity, aptitude, attitude. So all these values, you should have examples, you should have definitions, and revise those definitions multiple number of times, and that's how you can write or you can give your best in this exam, particularly in this paper. So this year also questions are a bit lengthy, and ethics paper is always a lengthy paper because you have to write 6 case studies and 13 questions which are 10 marker in just 3 hours. So therefore this is one of the lengthiest paper. So you need to be adequately prepared for this particular paper, and you need to present a lot of examples along with the answer, otherwise you will not score good marks in this paper. And also make sure that you maintain a short notes particularly for this paper, and regularly revise the short and the summary notes. So that's how you can remember things, you can present things accurately in the examination, and that will also reflects in your marks as well. So if I can say that this paper is easy, so if you have a good command over the different values, if you have understood the essence of this paper and the syllabus topics, this is very easy paper and you can also score very, very good marks, right? So there is a book in the market, for example DK Balaji. So that is a good book for ethics, and integrity case studies preparation. So you can go through that particular book, right? So you can also follow or prepare from Lexicon. So Lexicon is also another very important book that toppers have been suggesting for preparing this particular topic. And when it comes to the case studies, please go through all the previous year case studies and try to practice those case studies, and you could also look for the solutions of those case studies. So that's how you could improve yourself. You can write best answers in this paper and best answers for all the case studies. So because if you write a decent enough answers in this particular paper, so I'm very sure that you would score above 110 marks. We all knew that in UPSC every mark counts, particularly in mains examination. Every mark is very, very important. Now in this backdrop, you need to work more on this paper. And another advantage with this particular paper is that if you prepare this paper very well, you can write the best essays, because essays are more often philosophical. They're becoming a more of a philosophical nature, and ethics is part of philosophy. And if you are well versed with the ethics, integrity and aptitude paper, you can also write the best possible essay in the examination. Also remember, essay paper also gives you a lot of marks. So therefore ethics is a very important paper. You should not neglect it. Give your best when you are preparing for this particular paper, so that helps you perform better in the examination in this paper. So without any further delay, let's get into the discussion. So the first question that is asked in this year ethics paper is about the artificial intelligence, and the applications that the artificial intelligence actually have in the field of administration. So what are the concerns or the challenges with respect to artificial intelligence role in the arena of administration? So we need to look everything from the ethical point of view. So that is the question. So we all knew that artificial intelligence is an emerging technology, right? So big data analysis, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. So all these are emerging technologies with a huge potential in the future. But on the other hand, we should not neglect or forget the role that the artificial intelligence have in the field of administration or administrative decision making, particularly making decisions which are logical, which are objective and rational, scientific as well, right? So how artificial intelligence plays a very important role in this rational, logical, scientific decision making. So in fact, the role of artificial intelligence in the arena or in the field of administration is a debatable issue. So we would like to discuss this in a very detailed and in a very comprehensive manner. So you can see on this slide particularly an image on the left side. So you can see that there are certain legal and ethical considerations of the artificial intelligence. So security is a concern. The cognitive services which are provided by the artificial intelligence is a concern. The accountability and transparency issues within the artificial intelligence, inclusivity, planning, bias, and robotic rights or robot rights. So we could say that these are certain ethical and legal rights with artificial intelligence. And now coming to the question, so we'll try to discuss this question in a very specific manner. So first and foremost, in the introduction itself, what you have to do, you need to briefly define artificial intelligence. You have to mention what is artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence refers to machines. So we have machines and those machines performing human-like functions, human-like tasks. So that is what is known as artificial intelligence. So as of now, we have a lot of machines across different industries, but those machines are not performing human-like tasks. Like, so what are those humans-like tasks? So these machines cannot think. These machines cannot act on their own without human intervention. But on the other hand, contrary to those conventional traditional machines, there are other machines which are powered by the artificial intelligence. So they perform human-like tasks. They think, they perform tasks on their own. And in fact, its main components are machine learning algorithms, right? So the main component of artificial intelligence, so which make it perform a human-like function. So the main component is machine learning algorithms. So these algorithms usually train on data, neural networks, and they usually mimic brain structure as well as natural language processing. And this brain structure and natural language processing by the neural networks will help understand the human language as well. And in fact, the artificial intelligence systems work by taking inputs, processing them. So they just take inputs and they process those inputs with the help of algorithm, and then they usually provide an intelligent, rational and objective scientific outputs, and those output mimic the human cognition and reasoning abilities as well. Now we'll understand what are the potential benefits of artificial intelligence in the arena or in the field of administration. So if you look at the potential benefits of artificial intelligence, so without a doubt, artificial intelligence can substantially reduces human error. Even if human beings are performing any task, any function, there is a scope for at least a minor human error. But computers which are powered by artificial intelligence technology, so they can avoid these human errors. So we could substantially reduce human errors, and that increases accuracy and precision of these technologies. And very often the decisions which are being taken by the artificial intelligence, so they can be, they are in every step guided by or decided by the information. So the information which was previously gathered and certain set of algorithms, right? So in fact, the first and a very important benefit of artificial intelligence is that it could actually reduce human error at a substantial scale, and that is very, very important here. And second most important advantage of artificial intelligence, so as I have explained to you time and again, that they play a very important role in decision making. So how they play a very important role in decision making? So they take certain inputs, they process the inputs with the help of existing algorithmic data, and they make decisions, or they bring the output which is logical, rational and scientific. So therefore the decision making would be most effective when it comes to the artificial intelligence, because they leverage or they use data to identify the patterns and trends often considered as invisible to humans. And in fact, so when we talk about the machine learning, which is a very important part of artificial intelligence, so this machine learning can analyze the historical data which is available, and they could also predict the future outcomes. For example, imagine that the eastern coast of India is prone to cyclones. We are very well know about that. So machine learning can actually analyze the cyclone data, and it could also predict the future cyclones as well by understanding the weather phenomenon, the temperature conditions, or the past data of cyclones and their intensity and frequency. So they can actually predict the future outcomes. So thereby, when anything has been predicting the future outcomes, that could allow the businesses and individuals to make informed decisions quickly and accurately. And in fact, when we talk about the difference between human beings and the artificial intelligence, so even in the field of administration, so when human beings are performing different roles, they're delivering their duties, responsibilities, there is a scope for human error that we have already discussed. And human beings cannot work all the day 24/7. But the artificial intelligence based machines can do. So they can work 24/7 tirelessly. But human beings cannot work tirelessly 24/7. So there were a lot of studies, and these studies have rightly pointed out that human beings are productive of up to 3 to 4 hours daily, right? So they can be productive only 3 to 4 hours daily, and human beings also need or they require regular breaks so that they could actually balance their work as well as their personal life. But on the other hand, the artificial intelligence based machines, they don't have any personal life, and there is no need to balance the work life and the personal life like human beings. So therefore, artificial intelligence systems, they available 24/7. Okay, so they work endlessly without any breaks, and they think much faster than humans and perform multiple tasks simultaneously with the accurate results. And even they can handle tedious, repetitive jobs easily with the help of artificial intelligence algorithms as well. So you can also mention some examples of these artificial intelligence systems performing different roles, and they're working tirelessly 24/7 without requiring any breaks. So however, the artificial intelligence system or the machines have a lot of potential in different arenas, particularly in the field of administration. But remember that we should not neglect the ethical concerns that artificial intelligence has in the field of administration. Particularly, we need to be concerned about the transparency and accountability of artificial intelligence systems, because artificial intelligence systems are very often run by a complex machine learning algorithms, and in fact these algorithms very often act as boxes called black boxes. So they are known as black boxes, and in fact in these black boxes the decision making process is not very often transparent. So in the new age of administration, in the new age of governance, people have been demanding more and more transparency and accountability from the government. But when artificial intelligence is not able to ensure transparency, so certainly it would be a concern in the arena of administration. And in fact, when we talk about the accountability aspect of artificial intelligence, so it is very often considered challenging to hold artificial intelligence systems accountable. So we cannot ensure the artificial intelligence systems accountable in the arena of administration, right? Because several times we cannot understand how the decisions are being made by these systems. So when we don't understand, we cannot hold the artificial intelligence systems accountable for their decisions. And in fact, users and stakeholders are less likely to trust the artificial intelligence systems, so if they do not understand how decisions are made. So accountability is a concern, transparency is a concern, trust is also a concern. And apart from that, there are certain security concerns as well with the artificial intelligence systems. Now, what are those security concerns? The first very important concern is the data privacy or the individual privacy, because artificial intelligence systems very often deals with a lot of data and information, right? Because they very often deal with a huge amounts of personal data, so that could substantially raises the significant privacy as well as data security concerns. However, data minimization is another important arena or another important concern. So collecting only the data necessary for the artificial intelligence system to function effectively, and anonymization, ensuring that the personal data which has been collected is anonymized to protect individuals' privacy. So therefore, these concerns in the area of administration has to be addressed in an effective and in an efficient manner. In this backdrop, because of the concerns that the artificial intelligence poses in the arena of administration, robust security measures have to be undertaken, such as implementing strong security protocols, and these security protocols will help protect data from the breaches and also the unauthorized access. So however, efforts to improve transparency and explainability include developing techniques for interpreting complex models and also creating user-friendly explanations of how artificial intelligence systems work is very important measure that has to be undertaken to make sure that the negative concerns or the ethical issues and the legal issues with respect to artificial intelligence in the arena of administration addressed in an efficient and effective manner. So the next very important question is about ethics and its important dimensions, because ethics has four important dimensions: normative ethics, descriptive ethics, meta ethics, and also applied ethics. So these are four important dimensions of ethics, and this question is based on the dimensions of ethics. Now the question is, ethics encompasses several key dimensions, and these different dimensions within ethics, so they help guide individuals, also the organizations, towards a morally responsible behavior. Now in this backdrop, explain the key dimensions of ethics, you have to explain what are the key dimensions of ethics that influence human actions, and also discuss how these dimensions shape ethical decision making in the personal context as well, right? So that's how you have to structure the answer. You need to divide the question into different parts and address each part. Now, in the introduction itself, what you have to do, you need to briefly define ethics. Okay, so a very simple definition of ethics is that we all knew that philosophy is a discipline, and within philosophy, ethics is one of the branch. Okay, so ethics is considered as a branch of philosophy, and philosophy very often, in fact, ethics very often differentiates between what is right and what is wrong, right? So what act is right or what act is wrong is known as ethics. So all of us in our personal lives, professional lives, as well as in our social lives, so we have opportunities, we have a lot of opportunities to choose between what is right and what is wrong in everyday's life, right? So in fact, if any of our decision it went wrong, it could have a lot of consequences in the future, right? So one such example would be our decision influencing, or our decision has led to a corporate failure, a loss of reputation, payment of fines, penalties, or even jail sentences. So everything is part of the larger study of ethics. And in fact, so different people approach ethical decisions from different points of view, and we must all accept that different cultures, and in fact there are different dimensions as well within ethics. Now we'll try to discuss those dimensions in a very detailed manner. Now what are those dimensions, why these dimensions are very, very important? So the first dimension is from the applied ethics. What we actually mean by applied ethics? So this is actually a theme of ethics, right? So applied ethics is one of the theme of ethics, or it is part, or it is a dimension of ethics. And in fact, this is used in everyday's life in variety of domains of work and living, right? So that essentially means, so applied ethics usually have a lot of a relevance in everyday's life. So whether our own living, whether in our social life, or on our professional life as well. And in fact, so applied ethics very often deals with, or it is concerned with, the philosophical investigation. So remember that ethics is part of philosophy, and in the applied ethics, so there will be a philosophical investigation of specific moral dilemmas, right? So a specific moral dilemmas in both private as well as public life, including the moral judgments as well. So that is known as the applied ethics. And in fact, it also uses conceptual tools of meta-ethics and normative ethics, and it will be used to investigate specific difficult subjects such as abortion, infanticide, animal rights, environmental concerns, homosexuality, capital punishment, as well as the nuclear weapon usage. Okay, so it uses the conceptual tools of meta-ethics and normative ethics. So there are certain norms so within ethics, right? So justice, equality, so fraternity, liberty. So those are normative ethics to so investigate the difficult subjects. So all these are considered as a debatable, difficult as well as the complex subjects. And apart from that, the next very important dimension is descriptive ethics. So when we talk about the descriptive ethics, so it is also one of the dimension of ethics. We all knew about that. This is also one of the dimension of ethics, but it is a less intellectual in nature as well as end of ethical spectrum. So it is not too much of intellectual in its nature, descriptive ethics, but it actually gathers knowledge on how people live and how people observe the patterns or events that arise in their surroundings, and they also draw a broad judgments based on these observations. Okay, so this is known as the descriptive ethics. So one thing that you need to remember when we talk about the descriptive ethics, so descriptive ethics is not too much of intellectual, rather it gathers knowledge about individuals and how they live, how they observe the patterns or the events that arise in their surroundings, and they can also draw the judgments based on these observations. And secondly, normative and prescriptive ethics. Now, what is this normative and prescriptive ethics? So, it is the study of the ethical beliefs, right? So, there are certain ethical beliefs. So, what is right or what is wrong? So, that is an ethical belief. So, it is the study of the ethical beliefs, and these ethical beliefs guide individuals should act and behave in society. So how one particular individual acts, so how one individual behaves in the society. And it also investigates norms for the righteousness as well as the wrongfulness of the conduct. So for example, if a person steals medicine from a medical shop to provide medicine to his ill mother because he don't have money to afford medicine, so whether this particular act is considered as a righteous act or it is an act of wrongfulness, so that is how the things would be investigated as part of this normative and prescriptive ethics. So however, if one individual violates the existing norms, there are grounds for the punishment as well as an explanation for doing so. And so these are this is what is known as the normative or prescriptive ethics. And another dimension of ethics is meta ethics. So what is this meta ethics? So this meta ethics is concerned with the problems that determine whether a given subject or item is morally right or morally wrong. Okay, so the problems actually determine whether a given subject or an item is morally right or morally wrong, and it also requires about our comprehension as well as how we take a decision, action, purpose is good, bad or negative. And then in the heading, explain how these ethical dimensions influence human actions. So this is another part of the question, so you need to write about that. So how different ethical dimensions, whether normative, descriptive ethics, prescriptive ethics, meta ethics and applied ethics, descriptive ethics, how they influence the human actions in their personal life, professional life as well as social life. So in fact, these different dimensions of ethics improves thinking of human beings, their perspectives and judgments. And in fact, we all knew that there are a lot of ethical standards, and these ethical standards will help us organize things in a better manner, achieve our goals and complete our work within a given time. And also all these things are being done in a good and virtuous manner for achieving the virtuous life and also for a larger good of the society as well, so which is known as the summum bonum. Okay, so in fact ethics, we all knew that the normative principles, ethical principles are very often the basis of healthy and peaceful society, because every institution which is designed for human good has some rules and regulations which are based on these moral principles. And in fact, ethics also prescribe a well-established standards that a person should follow concerning rights, what are the obligations, how any act or action is fair and benefits to the society by particular action. So these standards put a reasonable obligation to stop unethical activities or crimes such as stealing, assault, rape, murder, fraud and so on, right? So this is how ethics and ethical dimensions will help individuals in their individual, social and professional life. And ultimately, ethical dimensions are very, very important in all these different forms of life, because they can help individuals build trust, and they would be more and more accountable, and they can be more productive, professional, and they can also provide a better customer service to grow professionally. And in fact, ethical behavior on the part of individuals can also help create a positive workplace culture as well. So that's how you can conclude this answer. And next, a very important question. So this question is based on international ethics, and international ethics is also part of the syllabus of ethics, integrity and aptitude paper of GS paper 4. So without any delay, let's get into the question. The question is, it is not enough to talk about peace. Okay, so it's not enough to talk about peace, but one must believe in peace. And it is not enough to believe in anything, but one must act upon it. So that is very, very important, right? So this was one of the quote. So however, in the present context, what has been happening? We have been observing a lot of wars in different parts of the world. For example, the Russia-Ukraine war, Israel-Hamas conflict, Israel-Hezbollah in Lebanon conflict, Israel-Iran war, right? So we have been seeing that there are wars all across the world between different countries. Now, in this present context, the major weapon industries of the developed nations, so there are a lot of industries which are weapon industries, and they are well established, they have a lot of capital. So all they want is countries should import, countries should purchase more and more arms and ammunition from those industries. So these weapon industries of developed countries, they are based out of these developed countries, are adversely influencing the continuation of number of wars for their own self-interest. So this is how their self-interest is being pursued. So what are the ethical considerations of the powerful nations in today's international arena to stop continuation of the ongoing conflict? Right, so what should be the approach of this question? Now, if you look at the approach, so first and foremost, you need to emphasize on peace and non-violence in the introduction, and briefly, if possible, also mention who gave this quote. And secondly, discuss how developed countries' weapon industries adversely influence promotion of wars for their self-interest, and also write the ethical considerations of developed countries to stop wars in the international arena, and suggest a way forward as well. Right, so this is how you need to write an approach for this particular question. So firstly, you can write who gave this quote. So the above quote about peace was given by a renowned first lady, diplomat and activist, Eleanor Roosevelt. E. Roosevelt was given the quote. And in fact, Mahatma Gandhi was very often or very well known as epitome of non-violence. So he also emphasized on the capacity of all human beings to develop the full potential of non-violence. Right, so he very often believed that all human beings have a lot of potential when it comes to practicing non-violence. Right, so in fact, Gandhi very often associated people who follow the path of violence are coward. Right, so in fact, the path of violence was seen by him as a downward path away from our humanity. And in fact, the path of violence would be considered closer to that of a brute, while path of non-violence was closer to the humanness. So this is what the view of Gandhi with respect to violence and non-violence. And similarly, Jawaharlal Nehru was also a way of life, a thinking and action. So according to Nehru, peace is all about way of life, the way people think, the way people act on different aspects. And in fact, it was considered as a state of mind. And if we desire peace, we must develop a temper of peace and try to win over those who may be suspicious over us, who think they were against us or they are against us. So that's how the piece is being this is how you can write the introduction of this particular question. So however, it's not required to write such a lengthy introduction. You can briefly write, because the question is all about 150 words, and it doesn't make sense if you write a lengthy introduction and you would not have adequate space to address the key demand of the question. So that's how you could lose marks. So therefore you could write a brief introduction, and that would be mostly enough. And second part of the question, so how developed countries' weapon industries influencing the promotion of wars for their self-interest, right? So how they are promoting the wars to pursue their own self-interest. So in fact, the arms industries are also playing one of the instrumental role in promoting arms race between different countries. Arms race between countries, between different blocs, can increase the fear and hostility between different countries. So that may increase the likelihood of war. However, it would be very difficult to determine whether the arms race caused the war or was just a symptom of existing tensions. And arms exports by the weapon industries in the developed countries. So arms exports can actually influence violence through their trade. For example, arms imports in Africa have been linked to increased likelihood of internal conflict, including more deaths and refugees. And arms companies can use their economic power to influence export decisions, and they can evade the accountability for their involvement in the conflict zones as well. Right? So these arms exports, arms companies, and arms race are primarily promoted or driven by the arms industries in the developed countries. So their sole objective is to pursue their self-interest. So in order to pursue their self-interest, so they must compel countries to import more and more goods, more and more arms and ammunition. And there's also a strong arms industry lobbying as well, right? So the lobbying power can actually fuel arms race and can also increase the risk of war. When there are a lot of weapons with each of these countries, of course that could potentially fuel wars across the world as well. So there are certain ethical considerations of developed countries to stop wars in the international arena. So first and foremost, it is very important to respect international law, integrity, unity, and the sovereignty of different countries. So we are living in an era of nation state. So every nation state has its own sovereignty, and we have an international law, right? So international law must be respected by all the countries to avoid these wars. For example, UN approved intervention in Libya in the year 2011 to uphold the global legal standards for the military action. And secondly, human rights protection. So human rights are being violated whenever there is a war or civil war like situations, instability, violence takes place. Human rights are being violated. So NATO's North Atlantic Treaty Organization's Kosovo intervention in the year 1999 aimed to stop ethnic cleansing and also protect civilians and their fundamental rights. And in fact, promotion of democracy is one of the most important form of government around the world. Democracy is a value. And in fact, India is one of the largest democracy. India is the largest democracy, successful and a healthy democracy and a functioning democracy in the world. And every country must respect the democratic values. And humanitarian aid and peacekeeping. So United Nations has the United Nations peacekeeping force, but India is one of the largest contributor of security personnel to the United Nations peacekeeping force. So if there is any conflict between different countries, if there is a civil war, and if there is a human rights violation like instances have been taking place, United Nations Security Council can actually deploy United Nations peacekeeping force to those unstable and conflict ridden regions to essentially maintain peace or facilitate conditions so which would make peace a possibility. And non-interference and respecting sovereignty and territorial integrity of the respective countries. The best example was when in the year 1970s civil war was broke down in Sri Lanka. So India respected its the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Sri Lanka. So ultimately, Roosevelt's quote, a reminder that being vocal advocate of peace does not suffice. So it's not enough. Rather, it is very important to contribute meaningfully, and we should also, so at the individual level, at the community level, and collectively, we should become architects of peace through our beliefs made visible in the conduct. And this construction actually requires a daily reflection on how we transform principles into practice. The pursuit of peace is a constant journey, or achieving peace is a constant journey, but it is not a destination. So every step we take extends the horizons of possibility for replacing violence with social justice, right? So that's how you can conclude the answer. So if possible, you can also write a very brief conclusion. So make sure that you complete the answer within 7 and 7.5 minutes. So the next question, this question deals with the climate justice, particularly climate change and global warming. So the question is, global warming and climate change are outcomes of human greed in the name of development. So indicating the direction in which extinction of organisms, including human beings, is heading towards a loss of life on Earth. And in this context, how do you put an end to this to protect life and bring equilibrium between the society and environment? So remember that in recent times, ethics questions have becoming more and more lengthy. So since they're becoming more and more lengthy, you require some time to understand things. First, try to understand things. Try to develop a structure framework for the question, how I can address this question. So that is very important. So you have to divide the question into number of parts. So as part of structuring this answer, so that's how you can actually structure this. So first, you need to write the definition of global warming and climate change, and how greed has been a primary driving factor of climate change and global warming. And then write, how do you put an end to the problem of global warming and climate change driven degradation, biodiversity loss, extinction of species on the planet, and how equilibrium between society and environment can be achieved, and ultimately conclude the answer with an emphasis on the importance or the significance of environmental sustainability. So we are regularly discussing about climate change. So climate change, nothing but it just refers to long-term shift in temperature and the weather pattern. So currently we have been observing climate change, right? So it is a long-term change in weather patterns and temperatures that we normally observe. And in fact, these shifts may be natural, but since 1800s, human activities, particularly the anthropogenic activities of human beings of burning fossil fuels, have become the main driver or the primary driver of climate change. Okay, so due to burning fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas, which produces heat trapping gases. And global warming very often refers to increase in the planet's overall average temperature in recent decades. Okay, so planet Earth's temperatures have been increasing, and that is also because of burning fossil fuels. And natural processes have always affected Earth's temperature and climate, but more recently, planet's temperature and climate have changed at a higher pace than the nature alone. Now, in this context, how greed has been driving both climate change and global warming. So, greed is the primary factor in deforestation, and deforestation in turn, deteriorating global warming, and global warming contributing to the climate change. So, cutting down trees for making profits, the soil more vulnerable to erosion, so that can actually reduce agricultural output, and that can also cause heavy flooding as well. And we have been using or burning fossil fuels to generate energy, and that results in greenhouse gas effect, and that greenhouse gas actually traps the sun's heat and raise the temperatures, and it leads to global warming, and global warming further leads to climate change. And investments by wealthy would be very less or almost negligible in scale when it comes to climate change and global warming mitigation, adaptation, and achieving resilience in the infrastructure. Top 1% of the global population by income are responsible for a large portion of climate change, and they just hardly invest. They invest in wealthy corporate polluters, and their lifestyles also contribute to a large carbon footprint. And short-term economic gains are preferred or more favored compared to the long-term environmental sustainability, so that is also a cause of concern. So short-term economic gains can undermine long-term environmental sustainability. Future generations will bear the consequences of these decisions. Now, in this context, how do you put an end to this to protect life on this planet and equilibrium between society and the environment? So, we need to adopt sustainable practices. So, sustainable practices, particularly through investing in clean technologies, renewable energy resources, and adopting circular economy practices. Particularly, IKEA has committed using only renewable and recycled materials by 2030. And conserving energy, achieving energy efficiency is very, very important. So when we save more and more energy, so we could reduce the energy demand or the energy which is being produced from the thermal power plants, which uses fossil fuels like coal, and that releases a lot of greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. So in order to achieve energy efficiency, conserve, save energy, we need to transform or switch ourselves to LED light bulbs and energy efficient electric appliances, washing your laundry with cold water, hanging things to dry instead of using a dryer. So switching to renewable energy, switch to an electric vehicles. So that is also a very important aspect. So we could reduce the emission of greenhouse gases and pollutants by the transportation sector when we switch over to the electric vehicles, because electric vehicles have the capacity to substantially reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And we should also turn ourselves towards the circular economy, right? So circular economy is also very important because it leads to the sustainable utilization of existing resources, and that also prevents the extraction of excessive amounts of resources, and that would also further contribute to the sustainable development in the future. And circular economy, so some aspects such as reduce, reuse, repair, recycle are the basic things which are for part of this circular economy. So buying fewer new clothes and other consumer goods can also reduce your carbon footprint. So every kilogram of textile produced generate about 17 kilograms of CO2. And then, so increasing awareness among the people is also very, very important, and there should be an increased emphasis on collective action when it comes to the climate change, right? So in fact, we are the one who can make an impact on reducing plastic pollution, reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, and mitigation and adaptation measures of climate change, resilience to the climate change. So all these things can be done through a collective climate action, and that has to start from the ground level or from the grassroots level. So adapting to climate change, mitigating the adverse effects of climate change is very important thing. So in order to adapt to climate change, we need to erect safer and more sustainable buildings and infrastructure which is resilient to the negative impact or effect of the climate change, replanting forests and restoring damaged ecosystems, developing action plans for climate emergencies. So all these things have to be done. And ultimately, environmental sustainability is the responsible use of natural resources to ensure that they will be around in the future. So that is the essence of the sustainable development. It is important because earth is a finite place, a very limited resources. We do not have infinite unlimited resources, rather we have only limited resources. So resources like land, with limited resources like land, water, wildlife, sustainable resource use is the only way to make sure that future generations will have what they need to survive. So that's how you can briefly write a conclusion in this answer. So that's all for this lecture, and thank you so much. So if you like our work, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.